Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zang here, and today I'm bringing you another commentated VGC 14 battle. Now, originally this was part of my live VGC 14 series, and I'm still going to mark it as that, but I'm not uploading the raw file where I just commentated naturally because the battle took so long that I actually needed to shorten it. So I saved the battle video, and I'm going to do some post-game commentary and give you my thoughts and reactions as the battle went on. As you see here, unfortunately, when battle videos save, they don't give you the full team preview, but my team was Scrafty, Charizard, Rotom Wash, Garchomp with Aerodactyl and Venusaur in the back. Titus's team was Garchomp, Gyarados, Tyranitar, Meowstic with Amoonguss and Mawile. In team preview, I assessed that Mawile and Amoonguss were the biggest threats, so I decided to bring Charizard and Scrafty as my leads, because Charizard can KO half of Titus's team right away with Overheat, and Scrafty would intimidate Tyranitar and Garchomp to reduce their Rock Slide power. Rotom Wash and Garchomp were my last two because Aerodactyl and Venusaur were both pretty useless in this matchup, so I decided those four were really my best. And beyond that, that's not really very much. I just think I went with the best four, and I'm glad I went with the four I did. So let's get right into it. Obviously, going into the game, I was very scared of Meowstic and the Amoonguss. Amoonguss can be really annoying to deal with, so I knew that Charizard would be important in this matchup, especially in KOing the Meowstic and the Amoonguss. So I lead with Charizard and Scrafty, and Titus goes for Meowstic and Tyranitar, and this was a pretty good lead matchup for me for two reasons. One, I get the Intimidate off onto Tyranitar, and two, you see here that Scrafty's Intimidate actually activates before Tyranitar's Sandstream, indicating to me that Scrafty is faster. Now, Meowstic also has the option of carrying Trick Room, and I did not want that thing to get a Trick Room up. So in the first turn, instead of switching out or anything, I decided my best play would just be to Mega Evolve Charizard and Overheat the Meowstic and Drain Punch the Tyranitar. Logic behind this is, while Meowstic gets access to Fake Out, it would ensure that I get one KO this turn. Tyranitar went for a Protect here, and Meowstic went for the Safeguard, so things play out pretty perfectly because this Overheat, as you see right now, it's going to do a ton of damage. I'm running Intimidator, so I wasn't sure whether that KO or not, but Charizard's pretty clutch, and Overheat in the Sun is going to be enough to KO the Meowstic, and I'm going to pick up a free knockout onto Meowstic with it getting Safeguard, and Scrafty's just going to Drain Punch into the Protect. That Safeguard's going to actually come into play for the rest of the game, though. Titus is going to bring in Gyarados, and at this point, I'm like, okay, I know that Mawile is most likely the Mega Pokemon in the back, so I'm actually going to double target the Tyranitar because I want to get a Drain Punch Overheat on a potential Mawile switch-in. However, Titus is not going to do that. He's actually going to Mega Evolve into Tyranitar, bring Sand back. It's a really good play because I was actually tempted to Solar Beam Tyranitar, and Sandstream reactivating kind of threw things off, but it didn't matter anyway as Charizard goes for an Overheat. At -2 against a Mega Tyranitar, and Sand is going to do nothing to that Tyranitar, and I'm going to get to -4. Gyarados now shows that it's actually running a special variant as opposed to the common physical variant, and that's good to see because special variants really can do nothing to my Rotom Wash, which I have in the back. Scrafty goes for the Drain Punch here onto Tyranitar, which does over 50%, so I'm really pleased with the damage output. Tyranitar going for a Rock Slide, so a really good play by my opponent, and Charizard instantly faints, even despite Tyranitar being at -1. Right after here, I think, oh my god, I just made a big mistake, because now my opponent has Amoonguss, which gives all three of my Pokemon some trouble, because I have Rotom Wash and Garchomp in the back. So knowing that, I actually bring in the Rotom to threaten my opponent's Gyarados and my opponent's Tyranitar. And I anticipate the Gyarados switching out this turn into Amoonguss, so I'm going to switch into my Garchomp here. And there's no way Tyranitar is gonna attack this turn because that's just too obvious, especially with Gyarados needing to switch out. So I decide, okay, I'm not going to target Tyranitar. I called that prediction pretty correctly as Tyranitar goes for the Protect. Scrafty opting to go for the Crunch onto the Garchomp, but Garchomp's going to avoid that, revealing that it's running Sandveil over the common Rough Skin, which is probably better for me, I think, at this point, because Rough Skin makes it so that he can KO my Garchomp. At this point, I anticipate the Gyarados switching back into the switching back in for the Tyranitar, because there's no way he wants Tyranitar to just faint, so I call that correctly again, switching into Rotom Wash. Switching, people say isn't very common in VGC, but it's all about switching, honestly. My opponent, Garchomp, goes for an Earthquake, instead of the Dragon Claw, which surprised me, but at this, I actually wanted him to go for a Dragon Claw, so the Earthquake helps him out more. I go for the Dragon Claw, and it misses on Garchomp, so that's a Dragon Claw and a Crunch miss, and at this point I'm like, oh my god, Sandveil really, really sucks. So I don't want to lose my Garchomp here right away. I want to get another Intimidate off onto Garchomp, and I want to stall out the Safeguard. So I'm going to switch back into Scrafty here, getting another Intimidate off onto Garchomp. Not going to matter as Gyarados is special, but going to do a good amount to that Garchomp, decreasing its attack. Garchomp opting for the Protect here, and this was a really good play because I expected Gyarados to Protect, and I Hydro Pumped into it. So Gyarados got a free Ice Beam off, but because I made a pretty good switch there, Ice Beam not going to do very much to Scrafty, as Scrafty is pretty bulky. And so I'm going to be able to stay free of a knockout this turn as basically nothing happens and I stall out another turn of Safeguard. Now with Scrafty in and Garchomp having protected last turn, I'm going to double up on this Garchomp and go for a Fake Out and a Will-O-Wisp. But Fake Out's going to miss, and Garchomp's going to get a Rock Slide off. So I'm like, oh my god, this is just awful. And to add insult to injury, he's going to critical hit my Rotom Wash as well. And Rotom Wash is going to flinch. So basically, I did absolutely nothing that turn as he gets a good amount of damage off. Sandstorm's finally going to go down. At this point, I'm like, oh my god, thank goodness, I can finally avoid the Sand Veil, but my opponent obviously smart enough to play into that. Going to switch Gyarados back into Tyranitar and bring up the Sand again, and this is just another more couple of turns of Sand Veil annoyance. I want to conserve Scrafty to intimidate my opponent's Garchomp more in the future, so I'm going to actually bring that back into Garchomp. And you see my opponent opting to switch Gyarados out into Tyranitar. I thought my opponent would just stay in with Gyarados this turn, so I just went for a Thunderbolt. Not going to do very much, but going to bring Tyranitar down just by a bit. And so at this point, his Garchomp is at -1, still has Sand Veil, and Garchomp's going to switch out this turn, which is a good play, and I think I anticipated that. So Gyarados is going to come back in. Gyarados obviously not a big threat to anything but my Garchomp, getting an Intimidate off onto both. Tyranitar going for Protect, but at this point I was like, okay, that probably seems like a semi-obvious play. So my Garchomp, unfortunately, did go for the Earthquake into the Protect, but seeing how Safeguard actually wore off last turn and Garchomp protected last turn, I was able to get a free Will-O-Wisp onto this Gyarados. And this is big, because now with Will-O-Wisp and Sand damage, it's basically taking 18% damage every turn. Sand's going to knock Rotom Wash into Citrus, but I'm going to heal back all the way to 111 HP, and I'm in a really, really good position right now because both of my Pokemon outspeed both of his, and I have the type advantage. However, at this point, I'm kind of scared of the Whack-and-Berry and the switch back into Garchomp from Tyranitar, but I decide I'm just going to go for an Earthquake because I don't think he's going to want to switch out back into Garchomp. I make the correct play here. Getting a critical hit onto that Tyranitar would have been a close call, but I think he was in the range for a KO, even at -1. And I was really afraid of the Whack-and-Berry, and Gyarados actually did have the Whack-and-Berry. So at this point, I'm like, oh my goodness, how much am I going to do? And Gyarados hangs out with just a sliver. And that's bad, because that means Gyarados is going to be able to pick up this free KO onto Garchomp. Or not free KO, I guess, but it's going to pick up a KO before fainting to Sand and burn damage itself. So at this point, Rotom's going to take a bit more Sand damage, Gyarados is going to faint, obviously, and now it's my Scrafty and Rotom against his full HP Garchomp. However, Garchomp, with Sand Veil and Sand Up, at this point I'm like, oh my god, please let me just hit a Will-O-Wisp. Scrafty's going to switch back in, which is big, because it gets an Intimidate off, and I really need that Intimidate. And at this point, it's pretty obvious Garchomp's going to protect to get some Sand damage off, so I was considering Drain Punching myself to heal, but I decided it's not worth it because Rotom's more important than Scrafty in this matchup, and I really need to get a burn off, so I can't afford losing any health with Rotom. So I just go for the Fake Out on Will-O-Wisp into it. Now, my Scrafty's not carrying Protect or Detect, so I know that I have to basically attack with it this turn. Fortunately, my opponent's going to Earthquake my Scrafty instead of going for a Dragon Claw into Rotom, which I think was the correct play too, but because of that, Scrafty's going to faint, but Rotom's going to get a free turn off, and that's really big, and I'm praying that Will-O-Wisp hits here, but Garchomp avoids it, and I'm just like, okay, I think I've lost. But fortunately, Sandstorm's going to go away this turn, so I'm still in it. Garchomp's going to Dragon Claw my Rotom, and Rotom finally hits its Will-O-Wisp. After about 5 misses on that Garchomp, I finally get an attack off, and it's, at this point, full HP Garchomp slowly dying from burn, or fainting from burn, against my Rotom with around 60 HP. Rotom's obviously going to try to protect here to stall it out. Garchomp's going to Dragon Claw, and as you see here, it's taking substantial damage each turn with burn, 1/8. Here, I know that it's pointless to go for another Protect, so I'm going to Hydro Pump, and as you see here, Dragon Claw does 24 damage. So I'm like, okay, that might have been a low damage roll, but I might actually be able to survive another Dragon Claw. Hydro Pump's going to bring it down to a good range, and you see here, just under red. So I think at this point, okay, I just need 2 Protects to win, or even survive another Dragon Claw, which, based off the damage roll last turn, I could have done. But I go for a Protect here, and my thinking is there's no harm in going for another Protect, because even if I don't get it, I can survive. So I go for it, and fortunately enough, I get it. So it didn't even have to come down to damage rolls, and I'm going to take this game, despite Sand Veil Garchomp really just lucking its way throughout the entire game. Like, wow. That was a 17-turn battle, for reference, when most VGC games last maybe under 10 turns, and it went down to almost the entire 15 minutes. So that was a really, really crazy game, and that just shows that even with the worst luck, you can still come through if you play well and have a good matchup and call your opponent's moves correctly. And that's why Rotom Wash is so clutch. It can just single-handedly win you games. Anyway, that's it for today's battle, guys. Let me know what you thought. Rate, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, of course. 300 likes, obviously, for the series to give for me to record you the next battle. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Peace.